Welcome to Stories from the Center of the Universe, the podcast about the human experience.
Christian Ray Flores, welcome to the Center of the Universe.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I got an email, 3 weeks ago, introducing me to you, and I'm like, this story, your personal story, is crazy to me. Does it feel crazy to you?
It does, yeah. Even for me, I'm like, that is insane. Every once in a while, I stop and go, "Oh my gosh!" And I think maybe it gets heightened when I talk to people like you when I'm doing podcasts, and I do quite a bit of those, because I get reminded all the time that this is insane.
It is absolutely insane. And you and I talked about a week and a half ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago now. Let's talk about your story, but that you don't want that to be the focus. You want to pivot to more a more motivational conversation, more inspiring conversation. Do I have that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's fine if we weave it in. That's totally fine. Okay. I think the reason I told you that offline is because I go, well, okay, so people hear the story. It's kind of crazy. It's entertaining. It's maybe motivating, but people can't relate. And what do you do with that, right? As an average person pursuing things, you can go, okay, I guess that's weird, and that's it. And so I have this thing of maybe helping people in a more practical way. So
fair enough, but it does give people an understanding of who they're listening to now.
That's right, yeah.
Because we have become in part who we were, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
all those experiences and lessons learned have landed us with you and me talking right now.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. I just realized, I've read your Wikipedia page earlier today. You were born in Russia, but were your parents Russians?
My dad is Chilean. My mom is Russian. Yes.
Okay. There's got to be a fascinating story how they met.
Yeah, I mean, just college students. He was an engineering student in Moscow, so
okay,
sort of pretty normal backstory there.
Normal, except he went from Chile
to Russia. Yeah,
that's not typical. I wouldn't.
That is not typical. That's true. That's very true.
But they met and they fell in love and got married. And you have siblings?
I have a younger sister.
Okay, nice. All right, but then you guys moved back to Chile. You moving there for the first time. Your dad moving back. Yeah. I guess for your mom, it was the first time to Chile.
It was the first time, and my sister was born in Chile after me. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have memories of Pinochet and that?
I do. Very vague, but yes, because I was like 0 or close to 0 when we first landed. But then there was the pre-election campaign that they say I was part of. I was chanting, and my mom told me this crazy story recently. Is that she says we went to a election rally straight from the airport from Russia. Like straight from the airport, bypassing hotel, house, anything. And I was like, that's insane. Like, I didn't know that part. But that's how sort of intense they were about Marxism and supporting a socialist candidate and stuff like that. So apparently I was in the rallies with them as a baby and then as a small child. What I do remember, my earliest memory was post the military coup, because they had basically imprisoned thousands and thousands of people, and then they tortured and killed a bunch of people, which we didn't know at the time exactly the extent of the whole thing. But my dad was in a concentration camp, and at the time they put him in these soccer stadiums because that was like a large structure that can hold a lot of people. And my first childhood memory that is not in pictures, that is not derived, I know that for a fact, is standing outside of one of those stadiums with my mom, and she was trying to pass food through a guard. And I just remember being scared and nervous, and I know that dad is inside, and all of those things. So that's a strange first childhood memory to have, I think.
I can't think of another strange, because I asked that question a lot. What's your first memory? And yours is maybe the strangest I've ever heard.
Yeah. And then the refugee facility. So he was released. We went into this UN refugee facility, which is like a Catholic place. And and we were there for weeks and weeks and weeks, months actually. And so my actually vivid memories start in the refugee facility with all these families, sort of crammed in these little rooms with a bunch of like these makeshift beds, and then the kids just running wild because it's like a massive amount of kids there, and we would wreck things in that whole facility.
But you were basically sharing a large open space with a bunch of other families, I'm guessing.
No, they put us in rooms. They
Wow.
had, I think it was like a Catholic retreat center that was very rustic, so it was not like a hotel or anything, but it has sort of these sort of rooms, right? So they put like several families in one room, so it was pretty packed. So it was not like this massive warehouse or like or tent city like they show sometimes in Syria. But it was a real refugee situation. So
yeah, and a couple of days is rough, and several weeks has got to be.
Yeah. So it was there. We were there for a while, and it was surrounded. We couldn't leave. It was surrounded by soldiers, guards on the gates and stuff. So so there was this looming sense of danger.
And remind me of the history of this, because this happened back in '73.
Yeah.
Were the communists in power before the coup?
Yeah. So basically, this was it's a very strange scenario because on a number of levels. First of all, it was the first socialist president in the world, I believe, that was democratically, legitimately elected by the people.
Wow.
And he was not a communist, he was a socialist, but he was like buddy with Fidel Castro, all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And very charismatic, exceptional speaker, doctor, very educated. And he was elected by the people. So that's one thing, which is unusual. Usually socialist, communist presidents come into power, by some sort of coup or revolution. Then the other paradoxical thing is that because it was the height of the Cold War, the United States, I think it was the Nixon administration, if I'm not mistaken, they were very, very nervous about the red threat, so to say, especially in the Western Hemisphere. So I think they declared officially the Western Hemisphere, the whole thing, as the zone of vital interest for the United States, basically saying, hey, you don't just do whatever you want in this part of the world. We're going to get engaged on this, engaged in the problem. So they basically, the CIA, this is completely open information. It's not a theory, was involved in the military coup, in overthrowing the social president. And sort of the paradox for me was that the United States were more comfortable with a military dictator, brutal military dictator who was an ally for them, who was obviously who overthrew the legitimate government, than they were comfortable with a democratically elected government that was sort of on the other side of, ideologically, which is kind of screwed up, I think. But it was the reality of the world at the time.
Yeah, I tell everybody when these kinds of conversations come up, like I am proud to be an American. I have not always been proud of our government.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things the meddling part is probably the one thing that I don't like about sort of America, how America does its business internationally. It's that the meddling is sometimes not only counterproductive but very destructive. But I also understand that it's not the meddle. There's a thin line between meddling and supporting and helping a good cause, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think America has overstepped quite a few times into the dark side.
Our history is littered with it, and if you don't believe that, people need to do their research.
Yeah, I mean it's just true. So
yeah, there are more examples of that than I care to think about, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're young, you're in a refugee camp, but your mom's Russian. Was the idea that you guys would go back to Russia because that way you wouldn't have to worry about being a refugee, and at least one of your parents would be.
I don't know what the deal was, but Russia was not. We basically would get in the refugee facility. We would get delegations from the different embassies, who were basically saying, "Hey, do you want asylum? give us a document. So that's, and the Russians were not there. The Soviets were not offering that, which is sort of interesting if you think about it. So I'm not sure why they didn't go straight back to Russia. But my mom definitely felt very shell shocked and wanted to go back home. But we ended up accepting one asylum, which is in Germany. They got offered two, one in Australia and one in Germany. And we ended up in Munich, and we had just an incredibly welcoming city. The mayor was there to meet us. It was just really just so encouraging. And they took care of us, and my dad was taking lessons, and he was offered a job at Lufthansa, and so we were supposed to stay there, but then my mom just sort of pulled the trigger and freaked out and wanted to go back to the Soviet Union. And my dad was a softie, and he said yes, and I thought it was dumb, to do that, but that's what they did for a little bit.
Yeah, Germany back then, I mean, you're less than 30 years removed from the end of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Berlin certainly had this. There was a French sector, an American sector,
Yeah.
British, and Soviet sector at the time. Munich was
on the west, yeah.
Right. It was basically a Western.
So it was more prosperous, obviously, than the East. The East was decimated not only by the war, it was also decimated by the Soviets that just stripped it bare, They took all the factories, everything. Yeah,
you've lived, is the count 4 continents now? You've lived on 4 continents.
This is my 4th continent in my 6th country, yes.
And so you've seen a lot of cultures, a lot of how mankind treats itself or treats others within mankind. You tell me if I'm wrong. There seems to be differing values of life. Like, mm-hmm. I'd like to think that
yes, for sure,
American values human life.
Yes, 100%.
But culturally, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in the Soviet Union, not so much is my impression.
Africa as well. The value of life was very low. And then just because when there's extreme poverty, this is the level of poverty in Mozambique, for example, where I grew up, which basically we went back from Germany to Russia and then to Mozambique. I was 7 when we landed in Mozambique. So 4.
So you weren't in Germany or Russia very long at all?
No. So I was 7 when we landed. So 4 countries by age 7. That's a lot of change. And Mozambique is one of the poorest countries in the world still. The size of Texas, actually the size of Texas population-wise as well, similar in the general vicinity. And about 70% of the population lived on under $1 a day at the time, which is sort of the official line of extreme poverty. I don't know if it's World Bank or something like that, or UN. So it's extreme poverty in countries like that are ravaged by extreme poverty. I think the life expectancy at the time was 40 for men, 41 or something like that. Obviously, the value of life is diminished, right? Just by the cultural context and reality. I think in the Soviet Union, in the Eastern Bloc, a lot of it has to do with also the atheist, like burning out faith in Christianity out of the culture. And with it goes the value of life, the sanctity of life, because it's not sacred. It's just a person is just, a unit, a statistic to serve the greater good of the cause or the greater good of the motherland. So it sort of inevitably becomes a violent place in one way or another, where human rights are not necessarily valued at all.
Yeah, scarcity of resources, especially food.
Yeah.
People will kill for it, right? Because it means survival.
Yes, yeah. But also ideology. Ideology can do that as well.
Yeah.
Culture, like for more specifically. And
Sorry, go ahead.
And it's influenced by different things, culture. So it could be ideology. I believe the United States has the highest sort of this value of life because of the Christian faith. That was sort of a cornerstone, almost like a seed planted in the culture early on. And it sort of, not everybody was a Christian, but many were in the beginning, and it sort of primed the culture in that direction. In the Constitution, all the sort of the founding documents of the nation reflect that. So it spreads, and it makes a huge impact downstream, economically, societally, culturally, all of those things.
You've lived all over the world. You've experienced lots of places for significant amounts of time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a short answer to where are you from?
I culturally am American more than I'm anything else. And I think I was culturally American way before we moved. I was just sort of picked up the signal from media, books, things like that, you know. And I just identified with almost like a frequency, right? You resonate with it. You know, freedom, entrepreneurship, freedom of choice, free enterprise, all of those things, you know, the pursuit of happiness. Those things are not inherently, let's say, African when it comes to critical mass, right? They're not inherently Soviet at all, actually. But I was that way. And I sort of picked it up from a distance at first. And then eventually, you know, I didn't even know I was going to end up in the U.S. I married an American, but we lived in Russia because by then I had a massive brand name recognition. So I had a lot of advantages of being there. I was a pop star, one of the top pop stars there for a decade or something like that, right? So eventually when I came to the U.S., you know, I wasn't really planning on that ahead of time.
Where did you meet your wife?
L.A. I was there for a conference, and she was one of the organizers.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
nice. So even living in Mozambique, so it sounds like you lived in Mozambique from age 7 to finishing high school.
14 almost. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you could learn about America from Mozambique.
Barely, but yes, barely. We didn't have television there, like at all. I mean, zero. I mean, it's hard to overstate just how it was like a different planet, right? How disconnected it was from reality. Of course, no internet, no TV, no radio, just people, you know.
No
And
radio?
No, there was a local radio, yeah, but no international anything.
Wow.
And then my dad got a huge antenna. He built a tower so we can get the signal from South Africa. And so we got TV stations from South Africa and Swaziland, which is a little kingdom, like around someone in the same. It's surrounded by South Africa. So we got it was bad quality, and we got a small TV set, and we would get American shows. And that was the first glimpse at America where I would see shows like Battlestar Galactica or some you know, like some criminal shows, detectives and things like that. I remember going. We saw Love Boat, and it was this super cheesy. I actually watched it maybe like 3 months ago, and I couldn't get through the episode. It was so cheesy. But at the time, if you think about it, right, I'm living in one of the poorest countries in the world, right? We have sort of this bare minimum. It's beautiful. There's nothing necessarily even. There's not a lot of suffering in the sense that we're not hungry, right? But we had a lot of scarcity. So you go from that world, and you look almost like through a window through this TV set, and you see people on cruises. Like, who goes on cruises? I don't know anybody who's ever gone on a cruise. I've never seen a cruise ship before. And all of a sudden I see these cruise ships with restaurants and people in nice clothes, you know, and driving amazing cars and the high rises. So that was my first glimpse. I was like, I was probably now not even 7. I was like 9 or 10 by the time we got TV. But it was like this one thing you go, huh. So we're people, they are people, but their life looks very different from my life. What is the deal there exactly? You know, so
it would certainly pique your curiosity how the nation formed and became what it was when you were looking at it in
absolutely
the 80s and 90s. Where were you when the wall came down in Berlin?
I was in Moscow. I was in Moscow. I was Berlin. I think the wall came down in '89, so I was maybe fourth year of college. I was getting a master's degree in economics in Moscow, and and it was amazing because we were just watching it in disbelief. Like the whole thing is, and then the whole thing came crumbling down in '91. So the whole country collapsed basically, and this was about around the time I graduated with my degree.
Yeah, I mean, tell me what it was like living through that time, living in Moscow.
It was so exciting for me because I was educated, I was multilingual, I was Western-minded, and I hated the Soviet Union with a vengeance. I just despised all of it, you know? The grayness, the lack of opportunity, I mean, even entrepreneurship was illegal for most of the time I was there. It became sort of a little bit more relaxed in the late 80s, but it was illegal, right? It was just horrible. And I am very much, by that time, very entrepreneurial. I'm educated, I'm multilingual, I'm well-traveled, I've seen the world, and I live in this place that feels like a prison. So to me, I was just over the moon. But the reality on the ground was very scary, right? See, especially in the provinces, there were actual food shortages, and there was, I mean, I looking back, I go, it's a miracle that we didn't get a civil war in Russia. It's actually a miracle. But also the rise of, in the vacuum of power and control, which was absolute before that, the rise of the mafia. So there was a lot of violence, a lot of mafia gangs everywhere. The police was a gang. Everybody's a gang, right? Basically. And also, because you were in Moscow, not all places, most places were just, are we going to survive? But Moscow and St. Petersburg, that's where the fortunes were made. So people became so rich so quickly, didn't know what to do with it. Some of them got killed over it, like actually physically killed, because it was just this sort of this Wild West kind of, it's Wild East essentially situation. I mean, there's a great book about it called The Sale of the Century, where literally the country was sold into parts, privatized, and the people who had access, who had some advantage, some in, they became owners of factories, mines, industries. It was insane, right? So it was a very exciting time, and I was probably the least practical one of the people that were sort of looking at opportunity. I was looking for opportunity, but because I was artistic, I was looking for it in music, while many of my friends were looking for it in banking and finance, and they made way more money than I did, but I was also very successful because of it, because there was a vacuum, and I had that entrepreneurial edge, and I had a work ethic and a sort of a fire in my belly, and I could and I was talented, and I created great music that people wanted. And because it's a free society now, supply and demand, right? If you create something great, people are going to love it, and people ate it up. I was on national television by the first year I was trying even, and sold millions of albums in 15 different countries. So
what was how would you describe, or how would somebody else who knew your music over that 10-year period, how would they describe you, or what do you think your image was?
It was like pop R&B, very classic, sort of Michael Jackson, Justin Timberlake, dancing, optimistic dance music, upbeat hip hop, R&B. It was unusual. It was on high demand. People didn't even think it would succeed because it was so decidedly non-Soviet, but I had this exotic look. I have a darker skin, long hair. I could break dance. I could bust a move, right? And I mean, people back then didn't know how to do that at all. And so I stood out. And because the demand was there. Huh?
You were a unicorn.
I was, yeah. I was very, very unusual. And sort of all of this sort of international refugee, growing up in all those places, all these things became actually the advantage.
It sounds like you were celebrated. Imagine if you had been 10 years older, that you would have had an entirely different set of life experiences.
Oh, 100%. So it was the window of opportunity. It all sort of coalesced. But I think a lot of it has to do with what you do with it, right? Because I've been a minority everywhere I've been literally my whole life. Like I don't have one place where I fit in actually well. So you can take that and become and be even a real victim, and I was a real victim, and then stay a victim. Or you can take and look at your trauma and you recognize in it some advantage with which you can actually serve people and solve problems. And that's sort of what I meant by when I was saying, hey, let's just not talk about my drama only, is that I want people to know, and this is literally one of the things that I do when I coach people, is I actually make people tell me their drama, and I will help them find the gold in the drama, the treasure in the trauma, and then use it to do better, in life. And I have yet to meet a person who doesn't have a treasure that it's like under the ground that can be mined. But I deeply believe in it because I experienced it over and over again, many, many times, not just that one time.
Yeah, you and I have gotten to a place in our lives, and I hope this is true for everybody at a certain point in their lives, where you realize you can learn from every person in every situation, even if the other person has ill will towards you. There's still something to be learned there. And to your wonderful point around you can learn or get gold from trauma, you're absolutely right. It's painful to explore and try to find it, but once you find it, it's useful.
It's super useful. Yeah, it's such an advantage, and more people should be looking there,
Yeah, it's hard, it's painful, right? But most people don't like pain, but
exactly.
There's value in the struggle to get there. I noticed is that a poster or a painting behind you of Prince?
It's a painting. It's a print, basically.
Yeah. What he left us way too early.
Oh my gosh, yes, that was tragic. Yeah. I was depressed for like a week.
I was pretty bummed for a while too. So you speak 4 languages. I can figure out how you picked up Spanish because I imagine your dad spoke Spanish.
Yeah.
Mom spoke Russian. English. Where did you pick up English and Portuguese, and how old were you?
Yeah, so basically, when I landed in Africa, 7 years old, my parents put me in an African school. It's all in Portuguese. I'm the only non-African there. Like everybody's there is African, right?
Why Portuguese?
Well, because it's it's a colony. It's a Portuguese colony.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Mozambique was, yeah. So everybody's so I have to pick up Portuguese. I have no choice. And everybody in the street, my friends, whatever, right? So they put me there because they wanted me to. I think they wanted me to acclimate quickly, and they just threw me in the deep end, right? And so I picked up Portuguese in about a year, and then after that year, they sent me to this international school, which is for all the expat kids and the diplomat kids and all of those people. And it's all English, all of it. So then I have to I learned 4 languages by age 9, and
wow.
But those back to back were pretty rough in the beginning.
What was spoken in the house?
In the house, it was a mix. So I sort of write, I have this book called Little Book of Big Reasons to Love America. In the opening chapter, I sort of write this eclectic thing, right? That America welcomes immigrants, and I love that about America. I had a very strange dinner experience every night, where for outsiders, my dad would say something in Spanish, my mom would answer in Russian, without literally like completely no pause, no nothing, because they all speak the language, and because that was the heart language, she would say something in Russian, and then my sister and I could answer in either of those languages or Portuguese, and that was literally a conversation. It was 2-3 languages. It wasn't 4 because my parents didn't speak English. They spoke a little bit, but not enough. And they also speak French, so they could speak French to each other if they didn't want us to understand because we didn't speak French. But it was completely natural to switch languages or answer the question in Russian with an answer in Spanish, for example, and even mix languages in one sentence, because sometimes you have like one word that sounds better or is more accurate in this particular language. So it sort of messes up your vocabulary a little bit.
Or it expands it quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
And your parents picked up Portuguese, it sounds like, too.
Yes, of course. They had to work there, so they spoke Portuguese.
So as you are a linguist across 4 languages, I cannot believe the American education system still doesn't begin foreign language training or a second language until kids are middle school or older. And you spoke 4 by the time you were 9, in part because you started so early with those languages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We should be teaching a second language by 1st grade. We should start by 1st grade in this country.
It's probably a good idea. Yeah. I mean, I think that would be helpful, but I'm skeptical on how much you can learn in school actually without being immersed, because I cheated. I mean, I was immersed in the culture. I mean, I had the insane advantage to being completely immersed, right? So I give Americans. I know Americans get a bad rap for, what do you call, somebody who speaks 2 languages, bilingual, right? One language, American, all of those jokes. But I'm not as critical of Americans, and I'll tell you why. We're a continent. Like we can go and see amazing places and vacation all of our lives without leaving the country. Literally, there's so much beauty. The infrastructure is great. It's safe, right? If the Europeans were one continent with one language, they also would speak one language. They just happen to have like whatever 24 languages in little countries, and they don't have a choice. They bump against each other all the time. So of course they speak more than one language. So I think it's really more of a context and geography situation than American arrogance. What they say, I don't believe in that.
I don't think it's. I think it's convenience. I agree with you.
Yeah.
We're not forced. There's no necessity to speak a
Exactly.
second language. But speaking a second language does allow America to understand the rest of the world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, being exposed to a different culture is massively advantageous, I think. Like it actually physically expands your cognitive abilities to speak more than one language. There's studies about that and everything. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say to any American, hey, if you can spend 6 months to a year overseas, just in any period of time, please do it. I promise you will not regret it. It will just expand you as a human being.
Yeah, no doubt. I think for a lot of Americans, middle class and maybe lower middle class, they're like it's so expensive to think about doing that. But I imagine you can do it in a way that's not.
Oh, totally. Yeah, with the new
overwhelming.
economy. Yeah, with the gig economy, the whole digital nomad thing, and a lot of American work is actually service work. You don't have to be in a factory shoveling coal or anything.
Yeah.
Like you can literally be anywhere. Actually, it might be cheaper to work out of somewhere else, and a lot of Americans do, as you know.
Yeah. And that's once you get there, you might be much better off financially.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
The idea of Christianity in your life today, did that start in the home when you were younger, or did you come across it later on?
No, the opposite. I was 26 years old when I became, until 26, I was quite literally, I knew nobody who believed in God, like zero, because I brought up by a couple of Marxists who were atheists, right?
They were both Marxists. Yes.
Yeah, they were both Marxists. So everybody I knew was Marxist. When we went to Russia, of course, I saw churches and everything. And to me, it was a very backwards situation. I didn't understand it. I did get baptized in the Russian Orthodox Church when I was 18 because I was super nervous about finals and I needed divine intervention. So I was desperate, all of a sudden I became a believer for like 15 minutes, right?
That's right.
And didn't work either. Didn't help me with my finals. But in earnest, I bumped against Christianity and really was exposed to it when I was 26. At the peak of my career, I was sort of clinically depressed, and I met this Canadian missionary who introduced me to the faith and invited me to his home and shared his life with me. And I was just blown away, and I just wanted in.
How did you run into this Canadian missionary?
Somebody actually dragged me more like it to church, because I was really a new guy I met, and he was like, "You should come to church." I'm like, "Why? Why would I do that?" He goes, "It's different. Trust me. It's not the kind of," and he was referring to the Russian Orthodox Church where there's the buildings and the smoke and the, sort of the prayers in a language you don't understand, that kind of thing, right? He was like, no, it's modern. They're practical sermons and is different. I'm like, all right, I'll go, whatever, So I went begrudgingly, quite frankly, and I met him there. He was the guy he started he was a church planter. He came to the country before the fall of the Soviet Union, and with like 17 people from all over in a little team.
Wow.
And the church just blew up. It became about 10,000 members within 5 years, I think, something like that.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
What a great friend to take you there grudgingly, and what a wonderful person that missionary.
He's still one of my best friends. Yeah, he's extraordinary.
Is he still in Russia?
No, he's in Kiev in Ukraine halftime, which is completely crazy. He's in Austin, Texas, because his son moved here with his best friend, because his best friend was mentored by me in ministry. Like, it's just a crazy world, right? So, and then this guy I mentored, he's now took over a church planting, and I'm out of that. And my mentor, Andy, he splits his time between Ukraine and Austin now. So I see him now. It's crazy.
Andy, you said the name Andy, right?
Andy, yeah.
Andy has some guts.
Oh, the guy's fearless. Yeah,
I
he's
mean,
one of those. He's one of those people who has zero fear. And he's like this fifth generation Christian. Like I'm a fifth generation pagan, right? Like zero roots in the faith, and he's the opposite, which really attracted me to him because he was like, this guy has game. I need to learn more about how he operates. But he was, before going to Russia, this is not even the most bold thing he's done. He planted a church in Sweden before that. But before that, he spent like a full year in the jungles of Papua New Guinea. And all he wanted to do is translate the Bible into the local Aborigines language that didn't have a written language, and live in the jungle and sort of spread the gospel in the jungle of Papua New Guinea. Almost died there from all kinds of diseases, which sort of dissuaded him from continuing. But he was the guy who went there in the first place, and he was totally fine with being in the jungle, So he's that kind of guy.
He's never been married.
He was married. By the time I met him. He was married, had a kid.
Mm-hmm. And so he was raising his kid in Russia?
Yeah, in Russia at the time. Yeah, Brittany. And Britain, his daughter that I met when I first met him is now in Kiev, Ukraine. She married a Ukrainian. So that's why he goes to Kiev a lot. She lives there during the war, the whole thing, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
What a oh my gosh. I feel like I should talk to you for like the next 6 days.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. So you're back in Russia. You're a pop star. Yeltsin takes one of your songs and makes it basically his campaign theme song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Yeltsin, refreshed my understanding of history. He followed Gorbachev, right?
He was yes, he was the first president of Russia, not the Soviet Union. Gorbachev was he was the head of the Soviet Union,
and I guess sort of the transitional guy into
so he was the transitional guy. So he was running for re-election, and so his first term was over. He was running for re-election, and he was losing in the polls. He was losing against the communists. The communists were making a comeback. And the reason is because it's complete chaos, right? There's nothing is better. Everything is worse. So a lot of people went like, hey, we want the old thing back. Like it's like the Israelites in the desert. And they were like, yeah, we sort of liked it more in Egypt, in slavery. It was very similar, I think.
And bizarre, right? But you can be conditioned to almost anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, Yeltsin was doing everything he could to bring capitalism may not be the right term, but sort of this more free Russia.
Mm-hmm. He was, but he also was a member of the Communist Party, so he was still an older guy, like just trying to reform, right? But he was definitely one of those bold, like he saved democracy because there was an attempted coup earlier. They were trying to bring the Soviet Union back, and he's the one who stood on a tank, literally, and rallied the people, and
that's right,
in the face of the coup. And there's like a iconic picture of him doing that. So he was the guy who just was bold enough to stand up to the old guard, and he took over. But it was just, I think it's an impossible job to stabilize a country like that after 75 years in a term or 2 terms. So,
yeah, I mean that's 3 generations of people.
Oh,
right?
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's completely impossible. So there's all kinds of things that went wrong, went bad, and of course, who gets blamed for it? The main guy.
Right. You mentioned the word oligarchy earlier, and in American politics, that word gets thrown around a lot, but there are no kidding oligarchies in Russia.
Yeah, totally.
Especially back in the 90s and even now, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, those were the people who took advantage of the basically the sale of the century. The book I spoke about is that those are the people that were close enough to the source of the wealth to take advantage of lack of rules, loopholes, all kinds of things, and they took hold of whole industries. And I met some of them actually in person.
Wow.
And but they went from nothing, just like I was, to billions and billions and billions in a matter of years.
Yeah, crazy. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, it's a vacuum. It was a sale, as you phrase it. So your 10-year pop star career, did it come to an end because you wanted to move to America?
No, I wanted to do. I was sort of this. How should I say? There's like 2 or 3 layers to it. I was just very conditioned to, first of all, cause, right? I wanted a cause. I was raised by cause-driven people who went to Africa to help a country get back on their feet after colonialism, after the Portuguese left. I was raised to live for something bigger than myself. So I was always very conflicted about commerce. And so there's this part of me that in my mind, I'm a free enterprise advocate. In my bones, I still have Karl Marx in my bones, right? So money is evil. When it starts rolling in, I don't know what to do with it. I despise it. I resent it. We're complex beings. So I think I was very conflicted about the success, and it felt meaningless to me at the time. So there was that part. I really wanted to. I became a Christian, so I became very excited about ministry and preaching the gospel, and I was like, those guys, they're doing the work. I'm just doing meaningless entertainment here, So that was sort of my thing. That's part of it, and I was like, screw it all. I'm gonna go preach the gospel. That kind of person. But then also there was part of me that was also, I think that wasn't necessarily unwise, but it was sort of disproportionate. I would say I could probably combine it. I could probably leverage my fame to do greater things, but I was much more radical than that. I was like, cut it off completely, and so I walked away from it. But part of it was actually quite rational in the sense that I knew that a Russian pop star, you get 17, 15 countries. That's the cultural space you're in. This is how you make your money. You tour. All of your albums are pirated, so you don't get money from record sales necessarily at all. I also knew that, I would probably be unhappy with that in the long run. Like I knew that way, way, way early, way more than people probably start have that sink in when they're in their 40s after a career, a 20-year career. I was 26 and I'm like, yeah, this is going to get old to me, because I grew up all over the world. I am multilingual. I have a master's degree in economics. I have gears to me that are completely deactivated by this pop star thing. So from outside, you go, well, you have it going on. From the inside, I was like, yeah, but I have like some more gears that I'm not even engaging here, right? Also, I want to start a family. I know the lifestyle didn't support that, and I was very, very serious about starting a family. So all of these things together, I guess, coalesced in me walking away from it, or transitioning out of it.
So how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I was 30. I was 35. Yeah.
35. And did you go directly to L.A.?
No, I went to Philly for a little bit. I was working with this big charity. They wanted me to spend some time with their headquarters. South Florida, then Los Angeles, then Austin.
Wait a minute. Christian, you experienced Philly, then Florida.
South Florida, then Los Angeles, then Austin.
So basically Miami Metro-ish.
Yeah.
Then LA, then Austin. That's the four that if you want to get like a full breadth of experience, go to those four places.
Yeah. And in the process, I was directing in the first job that I had, first career I was directing this $2.5 million project that was a national education project for this nonprofit, and it was basically entailed going to all these cities doing trainings and stuff like that. So I went all over the U.S. I had this massive sort of period of time where I just traveled quite a bit, and I saw a lot of the U.S., which was great.
So do you have a natural wanderlust?
Not necessarily. I thought I did for a while, but then I landed in Austin. I've been here for 13 years. I'm totally fine, right? I think as a base, no. As in generally speaking, but yeah, I mean, I don't do less than one international travel a year. Like that's just very low for me. And maybe two national travels. Like there's 2 years ago, I went to 4 different countries in the same summer, right? That's normal. Like to me, that's like a no-brainer. I love it. So in that sense, maybe. Well,
since you're what's the best place you lived in? And then what's the best place you visited?
I think for me, it depends on the season, right? So for me, growing up in Africa was definitely the best because there's zero distractions. It was very safe. There's no TV. There's no like hovering parents. We were like completely unsupervised, running wild, we would travel to islands and jungles and rivers, and I would spearfish with my dad. It was just amazing. It was just such a beautiful time. And then at the same time, we had a civil war going on, so there were bombings, So, but in the sense of experiencing a great childhood, it was the best childhood. It really, really was. And if you go ask my friends who grew up with me in that era, they all say the same thing. They were like, it was the best, So.
Yeah, and even though you were beginning to learn about the Love Boat and cruises and America,
as a kid, you don't care.
Yeah. That's I love that answer. All right, best place you visited, and again, you can do time of year. You can do hot and cold.
I love. I think for like tourism, probably Thailand, Koh Samui. We went to Koh Samui twice with my wife. Have you seen White Lotus by chance? The latest episode. So the latest episode season of White Lotus was shot on the island that we went on our honeymoon. We went twice. It's just this breathtaking nature, and I'm a tropics guy 100%. So living in Russia was always a little bit against my sort of ethos. I hated the cold the whole time, right? So Thailand's probably for tropics, for beauty, definitely Thailand. South of Spain for culture and history. I'm a quarter Spanish essentially, right? My Chilean roots are half Native American, half Spanish. So I'm fascinated by the whole Spanish kingdoms and the Moors and flamenco and all that Arab culture in the south of Spain. So they're just it's very rich there. So for me, I love that place. Those areas, Sevilla, Andalusia, those places.
You're describing and mentioning beautiful places. I've not been to any of the places you just mentioned. I've never been to South America. I'm ashamed to say.
Yeah, Brazil is another. Yeah. Just beautiful people. Brazil is like completely, it's probably God being fair because they're such a mess politically, because they have the most beautiful people on earth because of the mixed races,
Yeah.
It's just stunning. It's just it's embarrassing. Like you go there and you go, oh my gosh, everybody's beautiful. What the heck, So it's beautiful. The language is beautiful. The food, the culture, the music. I love Brazilian music. So Brazil is definitely a favorite for sure.
I should check out Brazil. All right, so I feel like prior to today, you've done more things than 98% of people on this earth. I have a feeling you do a lot of things every week, every month, every 3 months. What are you doing these days? What might you be doing, let's say, for the next, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How do you spend your time?
I am planning a retreat in Costa Rica for my coaching program, and it's basically anybody can come, and so it's like my first one actually. I haven't done that before, so I'm very excited. I haven't been in Costa Rica, and it seems to be also one of those places that you will never forget. So I'm doing that.
We were just there in April.
Really? Oh wow!
It's the volcano landscape. The fact that they have both Pacific and Atlantic coast. It's a gorgeous country.
Yes, I'm very excited about that. So I'm planning that, and then we're leaving for Playa del Carmen in Mexico for 2 months. Literally, we're going to spend 2 months down there with my wife.
Working or just enjoying each other?
I'm gonna rest for a little bit and then work the rest of the time. She's gonna literally rest the whole time. She's gonna just chill,
Good for her.
Yeah, I'm very excited for her.
So when you say work, you coach, you also are a minister. I'm guessing.
Yes, I've been, but the thing is, I've been I've been bivocational, which means sometimes it's a little bit paid, sometimes it's not paid at all, sometimes it's half paid. For 28 years, right? So for a long time, most of the time it's bivocational because I get super claustrophobic sort of doing one thing.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I've been doing that, but I've been pastoring a church here in Austin for 13 years, and I literally just passed on the baton to somebody I trained. And so I'm essentially not attached to pastoring a church, so I can actually move around a little bit more. And so I plan a little bit more speaking in churches and organizations of all kinds, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you're living the most free life you could possibly imagine. It sounds like.
Yeah. I've always, Paul, I think maybe that has something to do with that childhood in Africa and the trauma of unfreedom, both in Chile and the Soviet Union. I've always fought desperately for freedom and for choice. Just it's in my bones. I can't stand not freedom, and it's sometimes it's a bad thing because you don't necessarily want to play by the rules. You don't want to be stuck in a bureaucracy, that sort of thing. And bureaucracies they offer a lot of value sometimes, but part of what and ironically and interestingly, right? I guess to the point in the beginning about trauma in becoming your edge, your competitive edge, is that a big part of my coaching now is teaching people how to be free financially, economically, vocationally by starting their own thing, because never in the history of humanity has it been easier to create an offering that people might want to buy, and then create it on your own terms using the best tools you have, the best expertise you have, and then literally give it to people anywhere at any time in any place. So in the most of history of humanity, we were stuck in our caste, right? We were a peasant, we were the warrior caste, we were the nobility, we were maybe the sort of the priestly caste. And you got stuck. You were in that for generations and generations and centuries. And so changing lanes was impossible. There were people who did that, but it was maybe 1%, maybe 0.1%. Then in the 19th century, when the Industrial Revolution happened, that became extraordinarily different. But even that took, if I was a peasant, I would go to the city to be a factory worker, so that my son may be going to school and college, and maybe just professional school, not even college yet. So he might be a clerk somewhere and live in the city, and then his son might go to college. So that was the upper mobility thing in the 19th. This is just 100 years ago. Think about it.
Yeah.
This is a blink of an eye. This is a millisecond. And now you can literally start an LLC without even looking at a government official's face. Start a website, package whatever expertise you have, and sell it to anywhere, at any time, in any place.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's just, you know what I'm saying? It's a beautiful time to be alive.
Yeah, I can't imagine even 30 years ago people could envision
totally. Yeah.
what it would be like now.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think more and more people are getting a sense that, hey, times have changed. I don't need to cope with this thing that annoys me anymore,
Yeah.
What if I can do something different? And you don't have to be 20 years old. You can start at any time. And that's sort of the thing that I'm very excited about when I coach people. That's essentially what I do. That it sort of taps into the trauma, right? Into this deep desire to be free and to serve people, with whatever it is that I have.
So you're living a life of service, and you're living a life of an entrepreneur. I want to go back to your relationship with the Christian faith. What is it about the Christian faith that it is so compelling to you?
Gosh, I can talk about it for hours. I think for me, I remember the time where it was almost like I haven't met anybody yet. I was walking my dog. It was the dead of winter in Russia, and I was thinking about death, and I was probably, I want to say 18, maybe. I was in college, And I remember thinking this deep, deep knowing that this can't be it. That this can't be it. Just you live, you die, and that's it. And I remember going, this doesn't make any sense to me, you know? And then eventually, you know, full circle, when you read scripture and you see there's an eternity planned out for human beings, there's a divine nature to human beings. There's sort of a very clear pathway of these are the things that are in such misalignment with how you were built to be, that it's called sin. And if you repent of your sin and you align with the source of your life and who has a plan, who is a loving God, who cares, who's counted every hair on your head and cares about you so deeply, so personally, that he will carry you through this life and then the next one. I mean, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
That's it. What else do you need, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's very well said. I am amazed at how well you speak English. It doesn't make sense to me. You speak better English than most Americans.
I have a good vocabulary. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you? So where does that come from? So you said, hey, I was kind of immersed in it. Well,
first it was early, right? I started when I was 8-ish, I think, learning English. By 9, I spoke it. That's one, but it was still not my first language for a long time. So when I married Deb, that shifted massively, because now I'm speaking to my wife every day in English. And I had all these British sayings, like I wouldn't say trash bin. I would say dust. I would say rubbish, something like that. I have all these British words that she was like, we don't talk like that, and even pronouncing it differently. So first it was that. It was full immersion at home in Russia with my wife. Then, of course, moving to the United States, you speak at home, and everybody you speak to is American. And I don't have that sort of tendency of being that immigrant that hangs out with fellow immigrants in the country. Like I did not care if I spoke to another Russian the rest of my life. Like because I have this sort of, mutt in me, international kind of person, right? I don't care. I can assimilate. But then, of course, the other thing I think that made it massive difference in the vocabulary was that then I'm preaching every Sunday. So you're literally professionally required to speak the language quite well, So if you have public speaking is horrifying for people, right? Most people don't like to do it. So if this is your job, to speak publicly and compellingly every Sunday, and I've done it now, it's not every Sunday, but maybe 2-3 Sundays a month, I speak for 20 years. Yeah. I'm going to speak the language.
Yeah, it's a fair point. You'd mentioned being in the minority everywhere you've lived. I have not been the minority anywhere I've lived, other than an overseas deployment with the military. But that's still different than your life experiences. But I have been in hour to 3 hour long situations where I am the only white person, and every time that happens, it hits me. Wow, this is nerve-wracking, because I clearly stand out, and I feel like everybody in the room is staring at me or is aware of my presence just because I'm the only one. You've lived that as an entire life almost.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So, but I think what happens when you're sort of forced to do that is two things. One, you need to find some confidence in what you bring to the table so that you're not insecure. And that's internal, right? Mm. And then the other part is external, is, okay, like I have a friend, actually, I'll give you an illustration, who is literally my age, Chilean, I'm not going to say the name, who was in the same environment that I was. I brought him in, and he couldn't do it because he felt everybody was judging him for being Latin, whatever, right? And I'm like, you and I are both the same, like literally the same, and I think the difference in mindset is he couldn't overcome. He wanted people to accept him, accept him fully as Chilean with no change. Mm. I actually want to learn from those people. I want to assimilate. I want to learn all about them. So I have a circle of friends, even in Austin, who are rich, white men, very successful in their families, very successful in their businesses, deep roots, multi-generational Texans, for example. Like, I stand out like crazy. But I literally make it a point to be around them because of that. I want to learn from them.
Yeah.
I want to learn what it means to be in the same, have three generations raised in the faith in the same place. I want to know at least some of it, right? I want to learn how they think about money, because I've messed up views of money. I detest it. I think it's evil in my bones, right? I want to know how do you create generational wealth and stay humble, faithful, love people, and do good. I want to learn those things from them. I want to learn how to raise a family that has been functional for 3-4 generations in a row. Mine has not. Like, I have so much to learn. I don't need their acceptance of me, my whatever it is, I need to learn. So that posture makes it easy for me to do it. And it doesn't mean that I don't have like moments of insecurity. I do. But the general posture is, I want to learn. I want to immerse myself in your world. I don't need you to immerse yourself into my world at all. Like, if you're curious, I'll tell you. Otherwise, I'm fine. I just want to hang out with you, So
Yeah.
that's my mindset, basically.
Well, it's a mindset that I wish more people had.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I mean, and I really do. Like, as an immigrant, I go, look, if you come to America, be an American. Learn the language. Love America. Understand the values. Learn the history. Learn the things that you don't have in the country that you fled from. Okay? You'll never lose yourself. I still listen to Latin American pop and folk music. I love Russian pop. I have friends who are some of the biggest celebrities, still my friends. Like, I'm not going to lose any of that stuff. But I'm also not going to be a victim and an immigrant in one of the most prosperous countries in the world. I'm going to love this country, commit to this country, learn from this country, and contribute to the country.
I imagine part of your coaching and part of your public speaking in churches, you are you run into people that have been victims for quite some time. How do you, and this may be a big question, so I apologize in advance, but how do you help them break out of that victim mindset?
I don't think I can, honestly. I think maybe I can say something, perhaps at best, to say there's another way, and maybe it resonates. But I really don't think you can do it from the outside. It has to come from the inside. Something needs to click, right? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, actually. I don't have that skill.
I don't either, because it breaks my heart every time I talk to a victim and I realize that they feel like they are subject. Everything bad that happens in their lives, they assume it was some other force, and that they have no influence, no control over their daily experiences, and they do. Everybody does.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm very curious, because I keep looking at Prince over your shoulder. What kind of music are you listening? Not kind, but who are your favorite artists these days?
This is like this massive range from, I would say, from the modern ones is like everything from the normal sort of list of Lady Gaga, Bruno Mars, so the pop people. My wife listens to a lot of country, so through her, I live vicariously through people like that. And great, just country music has gotten so good.
Yeah,
it's not my jam, but I really do enjoy it. I mean, the quality it's just off the roof, it's incredible. I listen to, when I write a lot, and I listen to classical. It has a sort of this structure to it. So I listen to a lot of Bach. I love Bach, and I like the backstory. So it's sort of, maybe that's some of it. And then I listen to tons of Latin related. So everything from flamenco, flamenquito, which is pop flamenco, Portuguese pop, Portuguese fado, Latin American pop, that sort of thing. So it's like this, it's pretty eclectic.
Yeah, your musical tastes kind of follow the life you've lived.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's amazing. So you're going to go somewhere for 2 months, and your wife's not going to have to work. Where is your wife from, by the way?
She's from Milwaukee. She's from Wisconsin. She's from a little town called Horicon, Wisconsin.
Is it a suburb of Milwaukee?
Oh no, it's like a marsh. Like people in Wisconsin don't know where that is. Yeah, it's like a 3,500 people population.
Wow.
Yeah, it's tiny.
And you guys, maybe I have this wrong, but you met at a conference in America, and then
She was in LA though. Yeah, so she was in a big city. She was working for MTV, VH1.
okay.
She was doing ministry work as well. So it's like there's a showbiz thing. She speaks Portuguese because she was an exchange student in Brazil for a year in high school out of like Horicon.
Okay.
So there's all these connections. She always wanted to be international. So she was not intimidated. She was not sort of intimidated by the fact that, wow, this guy lives in like a very far away place.
But you guys were married living in Russia.
Yeah.
Or do I have that wrong? You were.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How long had you guys known each other before you were married?
We met and married in 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I pursued her, like, because I by then I knew what I wanted. I've been sort of maturing in my faith, and I've like detoxed from my worldly ways. So I had like this very refined view of who I was interested in. And when she came into the picture, I instantly locked in, right? And I was like, I'm going to take you on a date. I had a speaking engagement literally right after the conference that was very prestigious, and I canceled it because I wanted to hang out with her. It was like that focused. And then I called her for every day from New York. I was in New York for a few days, and then I emailed her. This is dial-up. I couldn't call much, but I emailed her every day until she moved to Russia. And then we got probably 4 months later, we got engaged. So it was 9 months total, and we got married. It was 1,800 people in our wedding, so it's a lot of people there.
Wait a minute. How long had y'all dated before she moved to Russia?
Oh, like she moved to Russia before I said, will you be my girlfriend? And then she moved to Russia. That's it. That was it. Wow. She sold everything.
And 1,800 people?
Yeah. So the story was related to Andy, the guy I was telling you about, right? I'm an introvert. I just want to get away, do like 4 people in the wedding and get away, and And he was like, dude, you are a public figure. You're this Christian who changed dramatically. Like I was like the bad boy. I was in the tabloids for being a bad boy, right?
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden I became this devoted Christian evangelist, all of that stuff. And he goes, you can't just elope. You need to tell the story and have people celebrate you and see what a life with God will do. So let's rent a big place and invite everybody in the church and anybody they know. So it's completely open-ended. And I'm like, all right, I guess we can do that as well. So 1,800 people showed up. And I still know several people who the first connection with the faith was at our wedding. They saw there, and they became Christians after that. Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest wedding I've ever heard of.
Yeah, it was massive.
I mean, the biggest I'd heard of prior to today was maybe 500.
Yeah.
1,800 is kind of hard to wrap.
Well, we didn't feed all of them though. I mean, we had a banquet for like 150 or something like that. But still the ceremony, yeah, there was a lot of people there. We had press accreditations.
So wait a minute, Christian, you went from being a Marxist, pagan, bad boy, pop star,
yeah,
to an American Christian entrepreneur.
Yes, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, what a wild swing.
Yeah, it is.
And I must say, you went in the right direction.
I do. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, Austin, Texas may be the coolest place on earth, by the way.
Eclectic.
It's eclectic, but I take every positive part of the word eclectic when I think of Austin. Yeah. And yeah, they stay weird. Austin, I think, is one of the, or they just say stay weird.
Yeah, keep Austin weird. Uh-huh.
Yeah, keep Austin weird. I've been there a few times. It's a lovely place. So I hope your roots continue to grow there.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
All right. When people come to you for coaching, what are they looking for?
Most of them are looking to reinvent their career and elevate them. They're usually burnt out, unhappy, or wanting a level up, a different path, They feel like they're usually fairly successful, but then they feel that there's something profound lacking, and they want to build a personal brand. A lot of them want to build a personal brand, and they understand that that's in 2025. It's probably the best thing you can do to really, have more choices, have agency, and be known for something, for your mastery beyond your sort of employment. So those are the people.
And how long are the engagements typically as a coach?
I basically ask people to commit to 3 months. And basically and the reason for that is because new habits, statistically, like studies show that a new habit takes about 3 months to settle in. Mm. And so I basically say, look, I want you to give me at least 3 months, and then we'll evaluate and see if you want to stay on. And in 3 months, what I do is I work on these sort of pillar things that I know for a fact are universally true. One is the thing that I call fuel, and it's basically how do you really detox and go from anxious or sort of, like this mind fog, brain fog that people walk around with. Some people depressed, but really low grade anxiety is endemic in America. And I want them to learn how to become creative, joyful, clear-minded, on demand. Mm. And that's crucial, because if you can't think creatively, you can't build that creative future of yours, right? So that's the first thing. The second is we talk about finding that edge. Thing that I refer to is, okay, what is it that you, beyond being sort of a statistic, a generality, right? An engineer, a doctor, a podcaster, whatever. Who are you exactly? Like in more detail, where's the advantage? How are you uniquely positioned to help other people solve somebody's problem? And it's remarkable how undervalued our own edge is in ourselves, because it's so familiar. Mm. If something is easy for you, you don't think it's valuable, basically, Yeah. So we dig that up and figure out what the deal is. And then we talk about the brand and, okay, what's the business model, what the brand, what 2 or 3 options, how do you monetize that, how to productize your edge, all of those things. So all of that in 3 months. That's basically the promise.
Wow. How do people connect to you as a coach?
Oh, how do they find me?
Yeah.
You can go to exponential.life, which is the coaching website, and it's spelled without the E, starts with an X. Yeah. And those are people that are really like, go there if you go, okay, this sounds like very much what I need. If you just don't go there if you're just generally interested in some of the insights. Just go to my newsletter, because that's free. You can get it for free. ChristianRayFlores.com is the newsletter. It drops twice a week, and you can get a free version, a paid version. There are all kinds of perks with it. It's really good stuff. I invest in it quite a bit.
I am struck, Christian, by the fact that you just told me you're an introvert, but you're spending your life doing extroverted things.
Well, because it's different from it. It's not exactly. Extroverts don't get their energy from the public. That's the difference. The introverts get their energy from being alone. Yeah. So the extroverts get their energy from public. Like my wife's an extrovert, so she could be in a public space. We walk away, she's energized. I walk away, I'm depleted. Right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I can't do public things. So if I go on stage, for example, like if I'm speaking at church, right? It could be 500 people in the room. I go on stage, I have zero fear, zero nerves. I speak, I'm energized. I step out. The fellowship starts. There's like 100 people talking at the same time. My batteries go down abruptly in about 20, 30 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah.
So the public speaking and this idea of one-on-one coaching, it provides energy for you.
Yeah. Because it feels like one-on-one, and even the coaching that is one-to-many, which we do cohorts quite a bit.
Okay.
It's still very personal, very intentional. It's not small talk. I had one today, for example. I have a Thursday call with a group of people, and it's just so exciting to me because we're doing real life-changing stuff, every time.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. It actually does energize me.
That's amazing. But your podcasts are not draining for you because you've done many podcasts.
They're not, because it's like me and you were having a conversation. We're having coffee, basically, right?
Yeah.
Without the coffee, it's energizing. I'm not depleted. People go, "Wow, what do you do?" I do like 4 or 5 a week. People go, that feels like a lot of work. It's not. It's energizing. I'm having a conversation with someone who's curious, engaged, and hopefully adding value to the audience that has never heard of me before. So to me, that's very exciting. I find it to be an honor.
Yeah, it's an honor for you to be here. I'm very happy that we connected. I didn't know what to make of that outreach earlier. I'm like, why would Christian want to talk to me on my podcast? But I'm very, very glad we connected. I'm super happy we did this, and I want to be sensitive to time. I don't know if you have to go somewhere to do something. I typically go an hour 15 minutes, and we're basically there. But you are you've lived a fascinating life. You're living an awesome life now, and I celebrate you, and I'm very happy to have met you.
Paul, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the questions and the curiosity and everything. It's energizing to me as well.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd also really appreciate if you'd rate and review us. You can find us at scodupodcast.com.